Nobody tells you this after 60. Not your doctor, not the internet, and definitely not the weight loss industry that keeps selling you the same broken advice. You've been doing everything right. Watching what you eat, cutting back on sugar, walking every morning, and yet the belly fat won't move. The bloating won't stop. The energy crashes every afternoon like clockwork. And every single checkup, your doctor says the same thing. Watch your diet, cut your calories, lose the weight. But what if that advice is completely missing the real problem? My name is Dr. Faviemo. I've spent over 2 decades working with patients over 60, sitting across from men and women who are doing everything right and still watching their health go in the wrong direction. And what I discovered completely changed the way I think about weight, fat storage, and what is actually happening inside your body after 60. There is one single food eaten daily in rural Japan that does something no probiotic supplement, no fat-burning pill, and no calorie-restricted diet can fully replicate. It stops fat storage at the hormonal level, and it rebuilds the dead and dying gut bacteria that after 60, most of us have lost entirely and never been told about. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes everything. Here is something your doctor almost certainly never told you. After 60, your gut is dying. Not dramatically, not suddenly, quietly, slowly, over years, and almost no one is talking about it. When you were in your 30s and 40s, your gut hosted a thriving, diverse community of roughly 38 trillion bacteria. Different species, different functions. Some produced hormones. Some regulated inflammation. Some had one job: to send a signal to your fat cells that said, stop storing, start burning. By the time most people reach their 60s, that community has collapsed. Studies published in the journal Nature and the British Medical Journal confirm that microbial diversity in the gut falls by as much as 40% between ages 40 and 70. That is not a minor shift. That is an ecosystem collapse. And here is what that collapse means for your body. The bacteria you have lost were doing jobs your body cannot do on its own. One of those jobs was producing a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel for the cells lining your colon. Without it, that lining breaks down, becomes porous, allows particles into your bloodstream that were never meant to be there. Doctors call this intestinal permeability. Most people know it as leaky gut, and it triggers something that rewires your entire metabolism. Chronic low-grade inflammation. That inflammation travels through your bloodstream and reaches your fat cells. Specifically, the visceral fat stored deep around your organs. And here is where fat storage stops being about calories. Inflamed fat cells become insulin resistant. They stop responding to the hormone that manages blood sugar. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. More insulin in the bloodstream means one thing above everything else. Your body's primary mode switches from fat burning to fat storing. You're not gaining weight because you're eating too much. You're gaining weight because an ecosystem inside you collapsed and nobody replaced it. I want to tell you about a woman I will call Yoshiko, a research subject in a gut microbiome study I was part of 8 years ago. Yoshiko was 68 years old, retired school principal, sharp, disciplined, meticulous. She ate what any nutritionist would call a good diet: grilled fish, brown rice, vegetables, no fried food, no soda, minimal sugar. She walked 40 minutes every morning without fail for 15 years. Her weight had been steadily climbing since she turned 62. Not dramatically, but relentlessly. 6 pounds one year, 4 the next. A slow, stubborn accumulation that no amount of discipline could stop. Her doctor told her she was getting older and her metabolism was slowing. Take it easy on the portions. Maybe a bit more exercise. She was already doing more than most people half her age. When we ran her gut microbiome analysis, what we found stopped the research team mid-conversation. Yoshiko's gut had almost completely lost an entire genus of bacteria called bifidobacterium. Bacteria responsible for regulating a hormone called GLP-1, which directly controls insulin release and signals the brain to stop eating. It had also lost most of its lactobacillus populations, which produce the lactic acid that keeps the gut lining intact. Her gut was not just depleted, it was structurally broken in a way that no calorie deficit could fix. We will come back to Yoshiko, because what happened 6 months later, after we changed just one thing in her daily routine, is the reason I made this video. The food is called natto, N-A-T-T-O. If you have never heard of it, you're not alone. It is one of the most nutritionally extraordinary foods on earth, and outside of Japan, it is almost completely unknown. Natto is made from fermented soybeans. Specifically, soybeans fermented using a strain of bacteria called Bacillus subtilis natto. This fermentation process has been practiced in Japan for over 1,000 years. It produces a sticky, stringy food with a strong smell and a distinctive taste that takes some getting used to. In Japan, particularly in rural areas where it is eaten every single morning for breakfast, the populations live measurably longer, have lower rates of cardiovascular disease, and maintain healthier body weights well into their 80s and 90s. That is not a coincidence. And the science is now showing us exactly why. Here is what natto does inside your body. First, it stops fat storage by restoring insulin sensitivity. Natto contains an extraordinarily high concentration of a compound called vitamin K2, specifically in the form called MK7. Most Westerners are severely deficient in this form. K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin, which stimulates the pancreas to produce insulin more efficiently. More efficient insulin means your cells respond properly to blood sugar. Less excess insulin means the fat storage signal is reduced. A 2020 study published in Nutrients found that daily MK7 supplementation significantly improved insulin sensitivity in older adults with metabolic syndrome. Natto contains more bioavailable MK7 per serving than any other food on earth, roughly 850 micrograms per 100-gram serving. No supplement comes close to that bioavailability. Second, it rebuilds dead gut bacteria through living bacterial colonies. The Bacillus subtilis natto strain is what scientists call a spore-forming bacteria. This is critical. Most probiotic bacteria are fragile, or they die in stomach acid before they ever reach the intestine where they are needed. Spore-forming bacteria survive stomach acid. They arrive in the intestine alive and active. Once there, they colonize. They produce enzymes that stimulate the regrowth of native bacteria, including the bifidobacterium and lactobacillus species, that produce butyrate and regulate inflammation. A 2019 clinical trial in the journal Beneficial Microbes showed that regular natto consumption significantly increased gut microbial diversity in adults over 60 within just 8 weeks. 8 weeks. That is how fast a degraded ecosystem can begin to recover when given the right input. Third, it contains nattokinase, an enzyme found nowhere else in nature. Nattokinase improves blood viscosity and circulation at the cellular level. Better circulation means more efficient delivery of oxygen and nutrients to muscle tissue, and critically, more efficient removal of metabolic waste from fat tissue. This is part of why visceral belly fat begins to mobilize in people who consume natto regularly. The tissue becomes metabolically active again rather than dormant and inflamed. Fourth, it regulates the hunger hormones that after 60 begin to fail. After 60, the gut's ability to produce GLP-1, the hormone that signals fullness, and regulates insulin diminishes significantly. This is why many older adults feel like they never get truly satisfied after a meal or feel hungry again within an hour of eating. Natto's probiotic content directly stimulates the cells in the gut lining that produce GLP-1. A richer, more active gut microbiome produces more GLP-1. More GLP-1 means the brain receives a clearer satiety signal. You stop eating when you're actually full, and critically, insulin is managed more precisely, which keeps fat storage switched off between meals. Fifth, it reduces the chronic inflammation that locks fat in place. The Bacillus subtilis strain in natto produces a compound called polygamma glutamic acid, which has been shown in multiple studies to modulate the inflammatory response in gut tissue. As gut inflammation drops, fat cells receive less of the chemical signals that keep them in storage mode. Research from Keio University in Tokyo demonstrated that regular natto consumption reduced key inflammatory markers, including C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, by statistically significant margins over 12 weeks. These are the same inflammatory markers associated with visceral fat accumulation, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome. Now, the question that matters most: how do you actually eat natto? How much and when? The standard serving used in clinical studies and the standard breakfast portion eaten in Eastern Japan is 1 pack of natto per day. A standard natto pack is approximately 40 to 50 grams, roughly 3 tablespoons. That single serving delivers approximately 380 micrograms of MK7 vitamin K2, several billion live Bacillus subtilis nattospores, a full dose of nattokinase, and meaningful amounts of protein, fiber, and iron. Eat it in the morning, every morning. Consuming natto before or with your first meal primes your gut environment for the entire day. The Bacillus subtilis colony becomes active during the period of highest digestive activity. The GLP-1 regulatory effect is present at breakfast when insulin management matters most. Studies tracking natto consumption patterns in Japanese populations found that morning consumption correlated most strongly with lower BMI and better metabolic markers. Consistency over 12 weeks is where you see measurable change. Natto is available in the frozen food section of most Asian supermarkets and Japanese grocery stores. It typically comes in small packs of 3, frozen, with a small sachet of soy sauce and mustard included. It is extremely affordable, usually under $3 for a pack of 3. Online retailers, including Amazon, also stock it frozen. Look for brands that list only soybeans and Bacillus subtilis natto on the ingredient label. Avoid any product with added sugars, thickeners, or flavor additives. If the taste is challenging, and I will be honest with you, natto has a strong smell and a distinctively sticky, stringy texture that many people find difficult at first. Here is what works. Serve it over warm white rice or plain brown rice with the included soy sauce. The rice absorbs the flavor and changes the texture experience significantly. Or mix it with sliced green onion and a few drops of soy sauce and rice vinegar before eating. This is the traditional preparation and genuinely changes the flavor profile. Or blend it into a miso soup. The heat reduces the stringiness while keeping the probiotic spores intact because spore-forming bacteria, unlike fragile strains, survive moderate heat. One critical warning: if you're currently taking warfarin, Coumadin, or any anticoagulant blood thinner, you must speak with your doctor before adding natto to your daily diet. The vitamin K2 content in natto is exceptionally high, and vitamin K interacts directly with anticoagulant medications. This is not a minor interaction. This is a conversation your doctor needs to be part of before you begin.
For everyone else, the protocol is simple. 1 pack, 40 to 50 grams, every morning for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks, alongside your regular medical care. Now let me tell you what happened to Yoshiko. After we completed her gut microbiome analysis, we added one thing to her daily routine. 1 pack of natto every morning. That is it. Nothing else changed. Same diet, same walks, same meals. Just natto every morning with rice and a little green onion, the way her grandmother used to make it before convenience. Food replaced it in her household. At 8 weeks, her gut diversity markers had improved measurably. Bifidobacterium populations were partially restored. Her GLP-1 levels had risen. Her fasting insulin, the number that reflects how hard your pancreas is working, had dropped by 22%. At 12 weeks, she had lost 6 pounds without changing a single other thing. The bloating she had lived with for 5 years was almost completely gone. Her afternoon energy had stabilized. And she told our research coordinator, "Something I have thought about many times since. I feel like my body is working with me again." For years, it felt like I was fighting it. She was not fighting her willpower. She was not fighting her calories. She was fighting a broken internal ecosystem. And once that ecosystem was restored, even partially, her body began doing what it had always been designed to do. Here is what you now know that most people your age do not. After 60, your gut bacteria are dying, and that collapse is directly driving fat storage through insulin resistance and inflammation. The bacteria your body has lost were producing butyrate, regulating GLP-1, managing your hunger signals, and keeping fat storage hormones switched off. No calorie deficit fully replaces what those bacteria were doing. Natto, 1 daily pack every morning, contains the only food source spore-forming probiotic that survives stomach acid and actively rebuilds those dead bacterial colonies. It delivers the highest bioavailable source of vitamin K2 MK7 on Earth. It produces nattokinase, which improves cellular circulation and mobilizes dormant visceral fat. And it reduces the chronic gut inflammation that keeps fat locked in storage mode. 1 food, 1 pack every morning. Give it 12 weeks. This week, not someday, go to your nearest Asian supermarket or order natto online. Try it 3 mornings in a row before you decide how you feel about it. Mix it with warm rice and a little soy sauce. Your gut bacteria do not care whether you enjoy the taste on day 1. They care about consistency. Have you ever tried natto, or did you learn about it for the very first time today? Tell me in the comments. And after watching this, which part surprised you most? I read every comment. If this helped you understand something about your body that your doctor has not had time to explain, please share it with someone in your life who has been struggling with weight or digestion and has been told it is just part of getting older. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do for the people we love is hand them information that changes the question they are asking. Medical disclaimer. Everything shared in this video is general educational information based on published clinical research. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace your personal medical care. If you are taking warfarin, Coumadin, or any anticoagulant medication, speak with your doctor before consuming natto. Do not stop or change any prescribed medication without a full conversation with your physician.